Before I begin, I want to add a supplementary note to what we spoke about last night about Ayin Hara, because I got a few reactions today. I guess people in these parts, meaning here in the Western Hemisphere, as opposed to where I've lived for 22 years straight in Eretz Yisrael, people I guess are a little bit attuned, or I dare say even a little bit unschooled about these issues. I assure everyone that what I offer to do, I do for myself, not just on Erev Rosh Hashana. I do it for myself, my family, a few times a year, and I do it for my friends. And in Eretz Yisrael, Yeshiva like do this. We make a minyan after Slichas in Erev Rosh Hashana, and we do all these things, Heter Klolos and all these other rituals. Like I said, it's maybe there's a cultural divide over here, but I would like to assure everyone that I do this for myself, and it was Atzas Gedol Yisrael years ago. I used to be Misham. I used to go for Eitzah to Reb Rafal Levin, Zecher Tzai, the son of Reb Arya. I'm sorry about the break. We're back. So starting with the last point I was making, years ago, as a newlywed, I used to go very often to Reb Rafal Levin, Zecher Tzai, the oldest surviving son of the known tzaddik, who was both very close to Rav Kook and to the Leshem, Rav Arya Levin. I used to go to him for Eitzes and Brachas, and he told me to say a certain lachash against Ayin Hara every single day, and I try to do it every day if I remember. This particular psukim of from Rav Yehuda Chassid. It's from the Balei HaTosfos. And what I was offered to do it for is the lachash from the Chida, which is Baduk U'Menusa. And like I said, I do it for myself, and I do it for my family. I do it for all those I love. And listen, I'll just say that perhaps people are unaware that Ayin Hara is what actually created Yom Kippur, in the sense that we know the first luchos got broken, and we got the second luchos on Yom Kippur. We have not needed the second luchos if the first luchos wouldn't have been broken. And the first luchos were broken, the Gemara says, because of Ayin Hara, because it was given so publicly. Even the Goyim, the Gemara says, felt it and ran to Bilam to understand what's going on. And there was pushback. The universe looked unfavorably upon the giving of the Torah, and that's what caused the luchos to be broken. So it's a very real thing. And look, if people aren't, if it's not for you, I'm not trying to force it on you, then please give a donation to my efforts to disseminate Torah without my doing the lachash against Ayin Hara or Heter Klolos for you. But it's a real thing. It's very common in Eretz Yisrael, and I do it for myself and my family and all those who I love and all those who ask me. All right. Now I want to give a final address, for this year. Man, the last regular weekday of the year has been jam-packed with events that really demand our attention. Tomorrow's already Erev Rosh Hashana, last full weekday of this year, with hurricanes looming, and
I said leave me alone. I don't
excuse
care.
me. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. All right, with the hurricanes looming and the president's address to the UN Assembly, which is going to be the focus of our address, right? Really tremendous messages there that Hashem is sending us right before Rosh Hashana. And there was also, this might, pale in comparison, but there was a very disturbing video that went viral today that I want to address also, because it's all connected. And, Leiv Malachim V'Sarim B'Yad Hashem, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls the leaders of the world. And, of course, the bigger, his position, the more power that's at his disposal, the more you could be sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, controlling him or speaking through him, because you understand, as the Mefarshim explain, you cannot, leave that much power in the hands of an individual, unchecked. So of course, Leiv Melachim V'Sarim B'Yad Hashem, that if they wield tremendous power, and they could be world shapers. So of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has influence upon them, right? That that they should be leading the world in accordance with whatever He wills, should be. So, today, our president, and I was never so proud to be an American citizen as today, and I say this, firmly, resolutely against the disgusting media and all the leftists and all the shallow-minded people. Sadly, there are no shortage amongst them in our midst, even amongst the Jewish people. Right? The president spoke brilliantly, and he spoke exactly what needed to be said. Right? He decried injustice and a willingness to destroy injustice. Exactly what we davened for Rosh Hashana. Right? And of course, excuse me. Why? Excuse me, I'm a concerned parent. But this could also be a metaphor. When we cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He gives us attention like a father. Right? So don't go anywhere.
Help me! Tell him to Tapluba.
Okay, we're back, and I'm really apologize for that. But like I said, this is it's a metaphor. Everything that happens is a metaphor. Hashem is always holding up a mirror to us. So we have to solve domestic strife between our children, i.e., make peace between ourselves. And if a child cries, the father listens, right? So when we cry to HaKadosh Baruch Hu over the Yom Noraim, if you cry, you can be sure He'll listen, He'll get up. If we do it for our children, He'll certainly do it for us. Okay, so now, sorry for the delay. I want to get back to the issue of what what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said through our president, Leiv Melchem Sarim B'Yad Hashem, right? That and there's a sickness that we're surrounded by. It was criticized for saying what's exactly right, the determination to destroy evil, right? Iran, North Korea, and I saw a newscaster, burst into tears, covering what the president said. People will die, right? People who are evil, right? Do you think that Rocket Man, as he calls him, or is it Rocket Boy, right? Do you think he builds these missiles with his bare hands? Right? He alone, with his bare hands, is threatening the world. Sadly, his nation is complicit, right? And they have a moral responsibility to overthrow him. Right? There's no such thing. If by the same token, we should forgive the Nazis. Right? That's what they said by Nuremberg, just following orders. You have a moral obligation to disobey and overthrow evil, right? And we know the Rambam Shita, that's why Shimon and Levi were justified in wiping out Shechem, right? They had a moral obligation to judge him, and they didn't. It's that is the way. When a country follows a leader, they're going to pay the consequences of the bad choices of their leader, and if they didn't agree with it, then they should have rebelled. And if they did agree with it, then they're equally as guilty as he is. And so, but the liberal agenda is to rid the world of law and order, right? And right, Asher Alkain, we have to really stand behind our president that spoke about fighting evil, which is the whole Indian of Rosh Hashana and Yom Adin, and why the depth of it, that Am Yisrael is not scared on Rosh Hashana. And one knows the famous medrash that the Torah brings, that when Goyim have to go to court, they're like ois mensch for days before, and Am Yisrael on Erev Rosh Hashana, we bathe, we go to the mikveh, we shave, it actually says shave, megalchen, right, take a haircut, we go in and we have festive meals, not because we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we understand that din is good. Din means law and order, and the universe without law and order is chaos. But the Goyim view law and order as a damper. They don't like law and order. That's the leftists. They don't like law and order. So when they have to go to court, they think it's a bummer, and they would love to rid the world of law and order, and that's why they hate the cops, and they're constantly doing things against the police, and they do things against the government. They burn the flag. They're against law and order. And this the Ramchal tells us in the Das Tfunis, that the worst punishment HaKadosh Baruch Hu could give the world, the biggest din, is that there should be no din whatsoever. Because when there's din in the world, right, so the tzaddikim are just get their justice, and they're reinforced, and they're built up, and they're rewarded, and they're put on top, and the Rishoyim are punished and pushed down, and that's called to fix the world. And all the nevuos of Lasid Lavo, utopia, when there'll be world peace, it also talks about mishpat, tzion b'mishpat tibad, right? Because when there's justice in the world, then there's peace. Because that's when you see a crime doesn't pay. Right? And only when the justice will be fully revealed, right, is we hope in the future. That's what we pray for in Rosh Hashana. Right? That right, when that happens, it becomes a world of kindness. Din, when it's implemented, leads to kindness. And that's what we say in our daily tefillos, when we daven for the restoration of justice, Hashiva Shavteinu Kvar Rishona, which the grand day of that is Rosh Hashana, coronating HaKadosh Baruch Hu and pledging allegiance to His law. Right? So what do we say in our daily tefillah? That's how we're going to get rid of all pain and suffering. When you reign over us alone, and then everything will be b'chesed v'rachamim. It means the din, the mishpat, brings chesed v'rachamim. Right, that which everyone knows, the famous Chazal, right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create the world with din. He saw that it can't last on din, so he added rachamim. So the Sforim explained that it wasn't the pshat that he negated the din. Mercy is not an act of negation of din. It is actually fruition, because the whole purpose of din is to give law and order. So the din itself, law and order itself, is there to uphold the world. So the law itself wants to have mercy when it's appropriate, because mercy on the evil is not good. Chazal tells us, you have mercy on the evil, and yet you'll be cruel to the good people. When you have mercy on the evil people, you're being cruel to the good people. If you have mercy on North Korea, you're being cruel to the whole world. If you have mercy on Iran, you're being cruel to Eretz Yisrael and Am Yisrael. Right? And the morons in, Iran's keeping the deal. Iran's still pledging to wipe Israel off the map. Right? But these people, they hate Klal Yisrael. They hate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore they hate law and order, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu reigns over the world with law and order. Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu's reign is to bring order to the world. Right? So they're hating HaKadosh Baruch Hu is why they hate Klal Yisrael, God's people, who bring God's order into the world, and they hate law and order itself. Right? The Sitra Achra, the other side, thrives in the vacuum of law and order. Right? So they call it kindness, but it's called that there should be no din, there should be no accountability, there should be no individual justice. Talk about social justice, which means you get regardless of your achievement, just because of your association or compensation for having been a victim, nothing to do with what you actually earn, right? Which is the opposite of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's din is justice, and it's individual justice. You get as much schar as what you worked for, lefum tzara agra, and that's called the best, because that's called that it's not charity, it's earned. You're called Baal HaTovahu, in the words of Ramchal. And that's the nature of God's law, that it's the best kindness, it's the best, and it's called that whatever you earned, you justly earned, and you can look the Shekhinah in the face that you got it b'schus and not b'tzedakah. Right? The liberals want to rip all that away. Right? And the UN is, which our president proudly put in their place, that they shouldn't cause globalization and undo how each nation should be its own sovereignty, because only one is licensed to do that in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. That V'yasu kulam la'avdecha, like we say in the Tefillah on Rosh Hashana, everyone will come to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yasu kulam aguda achas lasos tzoncha b'lev sham. The only global movement that's legit is when it's all to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which the president alluded to at the very end. God who made us all. Right? It's only, the globalization that's going to unite all nations is going to be l'sakein olam b'malchus shakai, where the din of the Torah, the malchus of the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be the melech, and the din Torah will be the international law, and that's what's going to fix all injustice, because the law of the Torah will be everywhere and permeate everything. Everything will be in accordance, and when the law of the Torah is allowed to do its thing and rid the world, of evil, right? So then the next step is just chesed v'rachamim, only goodness, kindness, and mercy, because anyone that's against that has been eliminated or been put into check or has gotten his atonement. Right? And that's why you understand, that Rosh Hashana is a very deep holiday. This is the secret, that we don't run away from the din. We face it. We don't even say sorry in Rosh Hashana, because step one is to be accepting of it. Ribon Shem, us and you are on the same side. We want your law and order. Ein lanu melech elata. We accept the din, because the God's law, the world is not worth saving if it's not going to be in accordance with God's law. A world that's that's void, that's devoid of God's law, is a world of chaos, a world of evil, a life that's, of course, has no spiritual value, but it won't even be any type of secular style justice either. There won't even be profane justice. There'll be stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, and dafka the poor that are the least productive and least moral. Just why? For reasons that will be made up. Right? The beginning of the renewal of the year is to be in allegiance with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's law. God's, constructing the law of the Torah, that was the first step of creation. And the whole new year also starts from that same point of acceptance of the Ribon Shalom's law. And the acceptance of his law is that the law should be the law of life. The law of life. We said this in addresses that we spoke about in previous years. We speak about, in science, the laws of nature, gravity, and all the other laws. And we call them laws because they're strong and that they seem to be dependable. Where does that come from? Midas Hadin. Because in pure unearned kindness, there's no commitment, because it's not earned. You're not owed anything. We call it laws of nature because the Midas Hadin gives the world its structure and its strength, and makes these laws that you could, rely on, that they'll still be there tomorrow and the day after. So we have to stand proudly behind our president, and I guess America is doing something right. It may be, the greatest civilization amongst the Ummah Sa'ilam that has ever arisen in course of history. Because if people hate America so much, and if all these anarchists, the number one thing they want to do, amongst things they do is just not stand by the national anthem and burn the flag every time they're upset, must mean that America is currently a pawn of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's law and order. That's probably subconsciously why they hate it. But now you go into the UN. The UN wants to make a fake globalization, a globalization based on liberal values. Right? And we have to resist the UN. And he put the UN in check. And the UN is the furthest thing from creating peace. The number one person, number one country condemned by the UN is Israel. Israel. Right? Hashem Yirachim. Right? And our president is properly marginalizing that body, right, that is trying to reshape the world in a type of warped unity that's, cuts out HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that won't last because any type of ingathering, convergence that's all Shem Shem will not last. Migdal Bavel was the first. Tower of Bavel was the first biblical precedent that demonstrated that. Right, but more than that, right? They're creating a fake unity that's based on hefkerus. Letting criminal regimes and regimes which have human right violations run rampant, and just starting up with whoever they decide to pick on. It's horrible. Right? Of course, let alone that they're trying to push the liberal agenda, which is eradicating all law and order, including, the law and order that a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl, right? And the institution of marriage and everything else. So I want to, refer back to a video that went viral today, and I was shocked that this video was sent around by the New York Post, which is supposed to be a conservative paper, because people are, sadly, even people that are on the supposedly like Rupert Murdoch, supposedly on the conservative side of the spectrum, still sometimes are shallow and don't see the in depth and don't see long, far-reaching ramifications, right? And that is that there was a video that went viral that some jerk, obviously someone who I don't like either, wearing a swastika, swastika armband, so that the Antifa people now set up a network, of informants. So someone sees the guy, takes a picture of him, and tweets his location, goes out, and the next person that might be in the area, they play sort of like tweet tag. Next person that might be in the area of where that guy is headed, tries to pick him up, and report on his location, and they report out until someone, who's in the area, who's willing to punch him out, will volunteer and be informed, volunteer and come and punch him out. That's what happened. The jerk wearing a swastika was punched out by someone who was offended by it, and it was orchestrated, and it was applauded by the New York Post. Now, no one's happier than me to see a neo-Nazi punched out. That's not the that per se is not saying what I'm complaining about, but what happened to the rule of law? What happened to the rule of law? What responsible citizens should do is tweet the police, call 911, because if the guy is posing a threat, right, he is harassing people like supposedly claim he was, he should be arrested. This is the same Antifa that fights with the police, taking the law in their own hands. This is anarchy. They're using the Nazis, who everyone hates, as a way of bringing upon themselves, as it were, a hechsher. We're good people. We're fighting for justice. Right? They're gaining credibility on the back of the Nazis, but you know what's coming next, right? Someone says something against gay people, they're going to come and punch him out. And someone who recognizes him will tweet his location. You're not going to be able to be safe anywhere. They'll just wait till they catch you and beat you up. I said this many times. It's only a matter of time that we're not going to be able to wear our tzitzis out or wear a yarmulke, right? Because it'll be considered a microaggression just the same. Because you ask any Orthodox Jew, where's a yarmulke or where's tzitzis? Why do you do that? Well, it's to remind me that there's a God, right? Tzitzis is to remember all the mitzvahs, all the 613, including the ones in Leviticus about, a man is a man and a woman is a woman, and then, Oh, so when they started about it, so they're deeply offended by the kippah and the tzitzis. We're not going to be able to wear our tzitzis out or wear our kippahs in public without risking getting punched. Right? Because we're promoting biblical values that people find offensive. Right? So now they're legitimizing, ripping down law and order. And I'm so shocked that the New York Post, as it were, sent around this video, with a positive spin on it, as if this was something good. Right? No one's thinking deeply. Right? No one understands the necessity for law and order and justice. Right? And there is no justice without law and order. Right? They try to create an alternate justice, a mutant justice. And we want the justice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And on this day, we accept him as our king, and we take upon ourselves the din. We don't care about the consequences, because we're better off with the din than without the din. We're better off with God's law than without it. The worst thing, as the Ramchal quoted for, is that the world should be lawless. That's the worst thing. God's law cleans up the world, and if you're on the same side as the law supports you. And Am Yisrael, that's why we're so confident. We make it through Rosh Hashana, and we treat it like a Yom Tov and not like a day of mourning, because we're with the law. And if you're with the law is with you. Be on the same side as the law, and the law gives you its strength and its protection. It's when you're on the wrong side of the law, you're against the law, that law means destruction. The shallow perspective of law and order is that it's a damper. It hampers, and it gets in the way, and it withholds things from you. That's shallow, and that's why you find interesting lashon. And with this, I want to end off with this point, that you'll find a lashon in the prayers we're going to say in course of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. It says legole amukos badin, to see the depth in din, right? Im tematze omek hadin, right? Omek, you see the depth, over and over again. In Gemara, Rabbi Nasan Dayanahu v'nachis leumka dedina. Din is called deep. Now, deep means that there's something beneath the surface. It's not flat, it's deep. Right? Deep means you have to really think to understand. And it's true. Din is deep. The superficial mind doesn't understand din. The superficial mind, looks at din as, it's constraints, red lines, and it's not nice, and it's not being generous, and it's not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It's how people look at din. Right? It's shallow. Am Yisrael, we have depth to us. We're in that depth. We're the others are on the surface, they're on the outside, we're on the inside. We're in that depth. Right? Am Yisrael's bifnim, we're in with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is the depth of Torah. And with that, we can understand how din is so important, right? And Chazal have warned us, right? And at this, I have to now get up and protest how certain Jewish organizations. We have our own UN, we have Jewish organizations that claim to speak for the Jewish people, whether it's rabbinical councils of the Reform or Conservative or even the Orthodox, whether it's the Haredi political bodies or modern Orthodox political bodies, which don't speak for us. You certainly don't speak for me, right? The Gdol Yisrael speak for me, right, and speak for Klal Yisrael. And shallow minds. What can you do? Shallow minds, right? That criticize our president against what Chazal tell us. And Jews were always loyal patriots of whatever country you're living in. Certainly, if you are living in the country of the man who controls the mightiest nation on earth, and We need favors from him. Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael needs favors from him. You don't antagonize him. Chazal have warned us, he have a mispalo b'shloma shel malchus, always daven for the well-being of the kingdom. Shel moli malchus, morosh malchus, not for fear of the law. Ish Yisrael chaim blo. People are just going to eat each other in the streets. That's what Antifa is pushing for. Bring the world to chaos, that people could beat each other in the streets like they do, and there should be no consequences. That's the worst. We have to be unconditionally behind our president because of Dina de Malchus Dina, right? But certainly, anyone with depth could understand, right, that he's on the right side of this. He's on the right side of this. His opponents are pushing for lawlessness, godlessness, right? Ripping away at family values, right? And it's very, very in sync with the theme of Rosh Hashana, that we have to stick with our president as a sign of sticking with HaKadosh Baruch Hu who appointed him, right? That law and order, and I have to again protest how after the president said something extremely true after the terrible event in Charlottesville, he says there's been bad stuff on many sides. He said the truth, right? The leftists, the leftists are trying to strike down law and order. He was saying the truth. The shallow spokesman, self-appointed spokesman of the Jewish people, and some of them are in prominent organizations. We have our own UN. We have to get rid of. The shallow spokesman of certain Jewish organizations condemned or criticized or expressed puzzlement, right, at amazement at the president's remarks. What do you mean? The president said the truth, right? Lawlessness, anarchy is just as bad as Nazism. Right? Now, you idiots, shallow minds, you don't understand Omek Hadin, right? You're not understanding Omek Hadin. You've given moral legitimacy to the leftist agenda, right, and put it on a higher moral standing than Nazism, when it's not just as bad, it is worse. And think about it for a second, everybody. Who's going to be coming for us? Who we have to be afraid of? 3,000, something like 3,000 people in the context of the U.S. who honestly believe that the reason why they can't get ahead in life is not because their education stopped at third grade, but because they're white. Is that our threat? Or it's the much greater majority, right, who occupy, positions of power, tremendous wealth, and occupy Hollywood, the entertainment industry, right? Who do we have to be more afraid of? Think about that. Who's going to come for us and tell us not to keep mitzvahs anymore, right? Not allow us to stand up for our religious principles. Think about that. So Rebbe should help. La v'gilun arts v'lim koresun l'sakelon b'malchus shakai. V'yis Hashem hamlucha v'Hashem l'melech al kol ha'aretz v'emi Hashem echad u'shmo echad. Rebbe Shalom should help. We shall be mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'leiv Shalom. He's our king, right? And we're devoted to His law, and we want His law to fill the earth. We want His law and order, and we will stick with His law. We'll be unapologetic about His law and order, right? And for the time being, HaKadosh Baruch Hu nisei nisim against what everyone predicted, right? Made our president because he is the one that Rebbe Shalom is using right now, right, to combat the lawlessness that the liberals are bringing to the world. I guess I have to end off with one chazal I meant to end off, but what could I do? A chazal came to mind. There's a chazal that says that Cain killed Hevel, thinking he'd inherit the earth. Right? And Esav comes and says, "Shoitaya Cain." Cain was an idiot, right? He didn't realize that while he killed Hevel, Adam, got back together with Chava, and they had Shais. I'm not going to make that mistake. Yikavu Yemei Evel Avi Vargas Yaakov. I'm going to wait for the days of mourning of my father. I mean, he conspired to kill Yitzchak Avinu to bring about the avelos of his father, right? And then I'm going to kill Yaakov because I have to kill Yitzchak, so he should have more kids. That way I can inherit everything. Yeah. Comes Paro and says, Shoita Haya Esav. Pharaoh says Esau was an idiot, right? Because while he was waiting to kill his father, Yaakov went off to, Padan Aram and got married and had kids. You got to kill them all together. Kol ben hayilor ayor tashichol chol bas techayun. Right? You have to throw all the males into the ocean, into the Yor, into the Nile. Comes Haman, and Haman says, Shaita haya Paro. Paro's an idiot. Because that's, he took care of the men, but you got to take care of the women also. The women aren't just going to assimilate. As we know, the Medrash says elsewhere that the women forced the men, even though they were exhausted, to have relations with them to keep the Jewish people going. The women are not going to assimilate. The women are not going to give in. You have to kill everyone, men, women, and children, like Haman said. Taf v'nashim b'yom echad, all in one day, everyone. And everyone's been in Haman mode ever since. But then, as Medrash says prophetically, is going to come Gog in the end of time. And Gog is going to say, Shoita haya Haman. Haman was an idiot. All right? He's fighting with Am Yisrael. Doesn't he know that they have a patron, Gadol Bashar? They have a great patron in heaven. You got to take care of him first. So it says, Ani mizdavig lepatron shalem. I'm going to take on their patron. And that's what the apostle says until him, al nostu al Hashem val Mashiach. They take on God and his appointed one. They make war with God. So, ask the Shloah Kodesh, with what weapon do you take down God? Well, what's the weapon to take down God? Says the Shloah Kodesh, pump the world with apikorsis, pump the world with heresy, and make people either not believe in God or be apathetic against God, apathetic with God. That's how you kill God. Make God irrelevant. That's where you kill God. Because you sever God's connection to the world. And that's what the liberals, the leftists are doing. They openly, in Hollywood, they make fun of the Chumash. We should boycott Hollywood anyway because it's full of pretzes and bad midas. Right? But now it's gotten everything is so, the message. Right? People talk about Pesach as having been a terrible immorality. God killed all those firstborn. I've heard that on talk shows. People call in. Passover is immoral. Deciding that Kodesh Baruch Hu, God forbid, is immoral. Right? There's a war against God. They make fun of Sefer Vayikra, and now the Isser of Mishkav Zachar. They make fun of it. They don't humbly disagree with it. They make fun of it. Right? Call us terribly intolerant. Right? It's a war on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The next world war is not going to be about territory. It's not going to be about nationalism. Everyone's criticizing Trump for his nationalistic agenda when he's absolutely right. Every country should look out for itself. That's common sense. Right? But the next war, it's not going to be over nationalism. The next world war is going to be the world is going to be embroiled in an ideological war. And it's happening. Because left versus right is just ripping up. It's the strife between nations. It's the strife within nations. Right? And there's an open war on HaKadosh Baruch Hu and on His Torah and on any form of law and order, because law and order is a certain manifestation of Torah. That's why the Chazal tell us, be very patriotic, support the local government, the government that you live under, really, because nothing's worse than zero law and order. So law and order is some manifestation, some extension of the spiritual root of law and order, which is the law of the Torah. Right? So that we're in a battle, defending law and order. So with this, I think we take this Rosh Hashana very, very seriously. Very, very seriously, and, seriously, very seriously. First, everyone should write a Shana Tova card to the president, really, and declare on behalf of the Jewish community unswerving, unwavering support for him and his agenda, really. And please, Jewish organizations, if you not smart enough to understand it, then please don't speak for the Jewish people. Right? But we the real fate of the world is in our hands, the chosen people. We have to go into this Rosh Hashanah, more serious than ever, of Karanei HaKadosh Baruch Hu as our king, that he's the real king, and his law is law, and being mekabel on ourselves his din. We want to live with his din. We want his din to flow through us. We don't want to avoid his din. We don't want to compromise with din. And we're certainly not apologetic about his din. He's our Melech, and his law is the law of the universe. Right? And with that, when we put ourselves in, that we will be makabel on ourselves to do everything that we can to forward Malchus Shamayim, right? And to reveal his law throughout the world and be unapologetic about it. And it looks like we're rapidly going back to the days of Greece and Rome, that we're going to, I'm not kidding, we may have to be forced, the days of dying al Kiddush Hashem are about to come back. Just, it'll be called Antifa, the people that will tell you to deny the Torah, or, right? It's coming, right? So, at least if we are willing, Chazal tell us, that if we are mechaven mesiras nefesh, right, we make a commitment, like by Kriya Shema, right? Whenever we're Kabbalah Malchus Shemaim, you're supposed to be mechaven, both by Echad and also by B'chol Nafshecha. They willing to die al Kiddush Hashem. So the Ramchal tells us that just having it in mind and making a commitment makes the tikkun that could avoid making it necessary b'poal, making it necessary in physical actuality. And Rosh Hashana is a whole day of what we do in one split second by Kriya Shema. Rosh Hashana is a whole day of that, of accepting HaKadosh Baruch Hu as our King, and we're committed to Him, and His law is our law, and His law is life. We don't want to negotiate with His law. We want to live with His law. We want to live by His law, and with His law, and with the power of His law survive, and that's why the law works for us. And we can be confident that the law itself decrees on us Chaim Tovim. You have the power of the law decreeing Chaim. Right? That this is so necessary for the world at this time. Right? To go and be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu and be Makabel His Din and be committed to His Din and express a willingness to be Moiser Nefesh for His Din, which is the Kavanah of Shofar. It's the most basic Kavanah. Shofar is what? Shofar Elo Shel Yitzchak. Right? Yitzchak was willing to die because there was a nevuah that he has to be in Oila. Akedas Yitzchak, Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak, Avraham Avinu was willing to kill, and Yitzchak Avinu was willing to die if that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. In the end, he didn't want that. He wanted them willing to do it. Sorry about that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us willing to do it, because He doesn't demand sacrifices unless it's really necessary. It's generally only necessary because we sinned, and we screwed things up, so real sacrifice is necessary. But HaKadosh says, if you're willing, you get scars if you did it, and because they were willing. Efer Yitzchak Savra Munach Vnei Kisei HaKol Chazal say it's like the ashes of Yitzchak. It's as if it really happened, and the ashes of Yitzchak are constantly there in front of the divine throne. Right? So with shofar, we have to remember Avram and Yitzchak that were willing to submit to God's law, afil b'mesiras nefesh, literally, and with that we'll all be zocheh to Shana Tova Metuka. Hashem should help. Right, be mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be makabel His din, and add willingness of mesiras nefesh, and with that we'll clean up the cosmos. V'chol liberals, v'chol feiglach meiri karesu, v'isal Hashem amlucha.